Has your bike developed an annoying rattle or creak? Or worse still, is there now a loud clunking noise coming from the bottom bracket? Or are your cables simply a bit too long, something you've been meaning to cut down for the last few months? Well now, in this period, where a lot of us have got a bit more time on our hands than we were expecting, it could be the ideal opportunity to get your bike running perfectly, ready for spring. Let's face it, we often procrastinate when it comes to jobs in general life, but also with our bikes as well. The niggles and the sounds coming from your bike that I've just described often don't prevent you from actually riding the thing, but it would be a lot more pleasurable doing so if it was running perfectly. So I'm about to go through a few of the most common niggles that you'll get on your bike and summarise how best to go about fixing them. And the bike I'm using as an example is this Orbea Terra that Si recently took over to Colombia. Hasn't even washed it since. The state of it. We are going to start off with the headset here. Now it's normally fairly obvious when this needs some kind of servicing. So if you lift your bike up and turn the front wheel and you hear any kind of grinding noise or it's stiff to turn, then something needs addressing. Similarly, if you've been riding along and hearing a bit of a clunking noise from your front end, quite possible that your headset is loose. Now to check this, hold your front brake on, which for me is the right one, rock it back and forth and listen for a knocking noise. You can also place your hand here by the headset and feel if it's loose, and this one is. Now that's quite easy to address. All you need to do to tighten your headset is to loosen your stem bolts and tighten your top cap bolts here, and then retighten your stem bolts. However, if you haven't serviced your headset for some period of time, it probably does need doing. And it's not as complicated as you might think, even if you've never done it before. Quite easy to take apart, clean all the components, re-grease them, and then readjust and tighten everything. Now every step that I'm going to go through on this video throughout your bike, we've got tutorial videos for those steps on GCN Tech, so we'll be linking to that in the description down below. Noises coming from your bottom bracket can be very easy to forget about when you're not riding your bike, but probably the most annoying noises that you can have when you're actually on your bike. Now if you've been using your bike through a harsh winter of cold, wet and extra grit, it's almost undoubtedly going to have had a negative effect on your bottom bracket and the bearings, regardless of whether it is threaded or indeed press fit. So in a similar vein to your headset, what you want to do is take the whole thing apart, give it a very thorough clean before re-greasing and reassembly. However, before you do the re-greasing and reassembly part, make sure that you check your bearings for any excessive wear. And if they are too worn, unfortunately it is time to replace your bottom bracket. The good news with that is that your bike will be nice and clean, ready for your new bottom bracket to go in. Now if you want your bike looking smart and running smoothly, then your cables are an often overlooked contributing factor. First up, make sure that they are the right length. So you don't want them too long that they look untidy and they're almost getting in the way. You don't want them so short that it restricts your steering or negatively impacts your shifting of gears. Other things that you can do to make them look neater, so if you've got two outer cables that are running fairly parallel to the same point on the bike, you can shrink wrap them together. Or you can go the cheaper alternative and slightly easier, which is masking tape, as we've done here. It's also a great time to check your inner cables and particularly the ends, which can get frayed, particularly if you've lost your cable ends. Easy fix if you've got enough excess inner cable. All you need to do is chop off the frayed parts and replace the cable end and crimp it on. Finally, if you happen to be bling enough to be rocking white outer cables, make sure they're clean and actually white, because greasy and grimy white outer cables are not bling at all. Now, as well as making them look smarter and neater, it might be time to replace your gear cables. Most of you out there will know just how nice it feels to have fresh, crisp, new inner and outer cables and how much difference it makes to your shifting. The thing is that as your bike gradually deteriorates with dirt, etc., you don't really notice that your cable shifting is getting worse because it happens over such a long period of time. But put some new stuff on, your bike will feel like $1 million. Another thing that can take a real battering over the grimy winter months are your brakes, and specifically your brake blocks, and that's regardless of whether you use rim or disc. Again, a very easy thing to replace and probably the right time of year to do it. All you need to do is drop your wheel out first and foremost. Once it is out, give your caliper a really good clean, oil the springs, and then once you've replaced the pads, be they rim or disc, make sure you readjust your cables accordingly. And finally, it's your pedal bearings. Now this is something I'm particularly guilty of neglecting. In fact, I've got a pair of pedals at home that have almost completely seized up. Stupid really, because it's not a difficult job to give them a nice service. First, of course, you just need to remove the pedals from the cranks, then strip them down to the axle, give them a thorough clean, and then re-grease them, just being careful not to overpack with grease. So those are our recommendations for a spring clean and service of your bike. I'm sure it's going to thank you for the time that you spend on it. Let us know how you get on with them all, and don't forget that a tutorial video to go through all of these processes is linked to in the description just down below. Also, if you've got any very specific tech related questions, every week here on GCN Tech, we have a GCN Tech clinic where we answer as many of them as possible. 2 ways to get involved in that. Firstly, you can leave your question below the tech clinic, or secondly, if you think about it randomly, head to social media, Instagram or Twitter, and use the hashtag AskGCNTech. Bye for now.